happy Tuesday, 10 at 10. I am your host, Richard Charpentier. And as you can see, I'm traveling through the IDDBA this week. So I have to record in a different location. But let's get started. The first question is regarding water absorption. And someone is asking which ingredients increases water absorption. So without having all the information or the details on what you're trying to make, whether or not you're making a cake, whether or not you're making a bread, whether or not, first of all, it starts with the flour. Each flour has different absorption rate. And the more bran, the more germ you have in there, the higher the absorption. And the more time you allow for absorption and the way you mix will also affect water absorption. But one thing to look for is the water holding capacity, meaning how much water can be held within your product and to stay within your product. So protein will absorb water differently versus a carbohydrate or starch. The colloids or the fibers that you have will also bind water differently. So everything is really dependent on the type of ingredients you have in. If you take modified starches who can swell, if you take a starch, for example, if you compare a wheat starch with a potato starch, the potato starch has about 1,000 times the ability to absorb and swell to absorb water versus a wheat starch, which is about 50 times. It's much less than a potato starch. So when you look into what works the best in terms of absorption, you have to look at the ingredients you have, where they're processed, and how they're processed. And also, the higher the absorption, if you have a shelf life, then you have to start worrying about how the higher absorption, which means higher water activity, again, not knowing what product you're making and how it will affect your shelf life as well. So hopefully it helped, and thank you for sending your question. Now we have someone asking about a pound cake, and they're trying to understand about he says, my pound cake breaks easily when cutting and creates a lot of crumb. What can I do to fix this? So the reason why your pound cake is crumbly because it's not properly balanced. If you look at the base of a pound cake, usually it's four portion, 1 pound of butter, 1 pound of eggs, 1 pound of sugar, 1 pound of flour, sort of the same principle of a pound cake. Every modern formulation, especially if you're trying to get shelf life, are being modified with different colloids to keep a little moisture. Could be gums, it could be modified starches, could be emulsifiers. And all of those small things will basically contribute to the slices being smooth and not breaking. So it's difficult to, fix your problem in a minute and having no information. But I would go look at your formulation and go back to the ingredients that are, you go back to the basis of what are the ingredients that I'm using that are tougheners and what are the ingredients that are softeners. And I'm trying to fix it. And also, if your cakes are drying, always check, and hopefully you do within your quality control and your QC group, you check the internal temperatures of the pound cakes coming out of the oven to ensure they're not over baked, which is something, if you over bake it, it's not the formulation, it's the process. So I hope, I give you enough information to get started on your potential issues, and hopefully, it resolves soon. Good luck with that. And now we have a last question regarding deactivated or inactivated yeast. And what is the recommended usage on flour percent for breads and other bakery products? So deactivated yeast or inactivated yeast is basically the byproduct of yeast production, and it's really high in glutathione. And glutathione is a reducing agent that allows for mellowing of the gluten and that allows for more extensibility and stretchability of your dose. So in order to recommend a usage level for your bakery, I would turn you back to your vendor who's selling you the ingredients, and because they're different concentration, and different ingredients could be added to it, and just see what their recommended usage level is, and that's where I would start. Always, be careful when using deactivated yeast, because it keeps on mellowing. So depending on how much time you have for floor time, let's say if you put deactivated yeast and you want to get a 4 or 5 hour fermentation on top of it with the regular yeast, your dough is going to be very, very stretchy and difficult to shape, and you could lose volume. So it's really based on what type of production you have and what's your rate at which you're producing, and that could be the good recommendation to determine how much you would need for your production. So, and that's it for today. So that was the last question. So thank you very much for listening to Tuesday 10 at 10, and I will see you next week for another one Tuesday 10 at 10. Thank you. Bye-bye.